Hello everyone, Don here again with the next update on the Corsair project. Managed to get a little bit more done this week. I was able to finally finish up the tail section, so I do now have everything all pinned all the way across, middle one, and then of course the other two out there. I need to come back in and touch up. I had to cut some of these openings out a little more to get in there to work. So I got to get the paint out and touch up the little spots here, but that's done. And as you can see here, I got the tail cover, the cover made for the elevator trim motor. It's a piece of like 40 thousandths aluminum. And like I mentioned, I put little rib nuts in here. So this just screws right into the little rib. The screws go into little rib nuts, little 632s. So that's all done. Alright, and then the tail. Last thing I mentioned I needed for these are these little pins. There we go. They're just little clevis pins with cotter pins run through them. And as you can see, I safety wired the other half of the turnbuckle so it wouldn't come loose. I've got jam nuts on both of this one, so I don't need anything excuse me, safety wired for these. I've got double jam nuts on them, so they're locked in tight. So everything works good now. These float nice and free. This cycle's good. Excuse me. Alright, I had a post last week about the tail wheel, asking how it swivels 360 degrees. That's how it swivels. This is in no way connected to the rudders. There's no linkage. When I'm talking about springs, I'm talking about these. See how those things, they're little pieces of spring steel. They hit on those flats, and those flats keep the wheel aligned. See how they push out? They're just really strong pieces of spring steel. That's to help keep the wheel centered for takeoff. And then also this has to be straight for the doors to close. So I was trying to explain that to a follower last week on how it works. There's literally no springs on it like this. Assuming there's springs like that, and this is somehow tied into the rudder. Not tied into the rudder, it's just a free caster and some centering springs. And those are, again, you can just see they're just bolted to the assembly here. So that's done. That's done. Everything in here is done. Push rod tubes all bolted back in. Everything's pinned. Elevator trim tab's done. And even the rudder. I got all the bolts, cotter pins in, all the rudders. So that's finished. So that should be it for the back end of the plane. I just set the canopy on there. Now, another major part I mentioned that I had to do. Got some grease on there. I'm going to pick that up. Alright. I had to make the propeller spacer. Well, there it is. 1.5 inches. It's got the steel, the bushings from the propeller flange lug into the back side of this. There's 5/8 inch holes all the way through this, and then there's bushings in there that touch these bushings and come all the way out and stick out about 3/8 to 1/2 inch, so the propeller can lock onto it. The propeller's all bolted on. Let me get back. The only one thing with this camera is it's not a wide angle. This is a zoom camera. And that's all the way out. So that's kind of what it looks like back. Now, of course, it's not the correct style spinner, but it'll do. This thing was originally a polished spinner, and it had been sitting on the shelf up there by my rotor blades and getting all kinds of dust and crud on there, so it was really nasty looking. So I chucked it up in the lathe here, and there's what's left of that chunk of aluminum. So I got almost 2 inches left if I needed to do another one, or for some reason or another. This spinner's held on with just one screw. You tighten that down, and this kind of expands onto the base. There's a base plate back here, and it centers on this, and it's got 3 different bolt patterns in there for Rotex, like a 4-inch pattern, and this one I think is 4 3/8 inch, so it's an SAE 1. So, and then it's got 3/8 inch bolts that go through this backing plate, through the prop, through the spacer, through the flange, and then of course washer and lock nuts on the back side. Now all these still need to be torqued to final specs. Right now I just kind of threw on, it's about a 7-degree pitch out here. But now you can see I've got plenty of clearance. You can see now, like right there's front of the cowling. If I had the prop on there, the edge of this blade was going to be really close to touching. With this 2-to-1 gearbox on there, this thing is really tough to turn. So one last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here probably about 2 inches, and I'm going to paint these really bright yellow, about the brightest yellow I can find. And then that bright yellow will give me a place to put the protractor on here when I do a final adjustment. This is basically the warp drive for a protractor. Literally just slips on here like so. You put the blade so it's horizontal, about like so. You have to get up here and use this to measure the angle of this, and then add the degrees you want to it. Actually, I put it on this way. So it was originally set up for, there's some real fine markings in here, but I had it set up at 5 degrees, but it was, the airplane's like 2 degrees out of level right now. But that comes with the prop when you buy a warp drive, and it's really, really sensitive, that little bubble in there. Got a piece of tape on the back, kind of hold it in place. So, like always, still got to get in there in the airplane and get that gas tank locked down and hooked back up. This week I may try to, I've only got 2 things left to do. Gear doors, canopy. This is pretty much done. When I get the paint out, I'll touch up these screws because they're dark blue. But it's done. I topped off the radiator. It's full now. Everything inside the engine should be done. This thing be ready to pull outside and fire up once I get the tank hooked back up. So I'm either going to try and work on that canopy this week, or push this plane back so I can get my cherry picker around here, and then lift this nose up to swing the gear. And then once that's done, the gear's done, and then the next phase will be getting these wings on, measuring up for the panels, inspection panels for the bottom of the wing. Get those cut out, get those formed, get them screwed on. The screws literally will screw up into this, just some wood screws. And what I'm going to do is this, since this is actually the end of the canopy right here, I'm going to cut this off. I do have, there's a piece of 2-inch foam basically right there, 1.5 inches, 2 inches of foam. Because what happened was when I pressed this out, the canopy was, the plastic was clear up here. So I had all this extra here that could have been used back there. Because this canopy is actually from here to about here. But it still came up a little short. So I'm just going to whittle that off. Go get me another piece of flannel material, get this recovered in the flannel. And then the last piece of plexi is right there. That's more than enough. I've got like 3 feet, and this is only like 2 feet end to end. So once I lop this off and I go to form it into the heated piece, I'll keep this as close to the front as I can and give me as much as I can back there, so I can fix this little dovetail you see right there. It's not supposed to be there. I mean, this canopy is supposed to end right about here. And then without that lip on it, it's not going to give me this here. It'll form around that corner a little better and give a little more depth. So the idea is to get it so it comes back here farther. Excuse me. Get this so it's back into here more. So I guess that's going to do it for this week's update. It took me 2 days just to do that hub. 1 day of cutting it and another day of drilling it and making all the bushings for it. And the new bolts are actually a little too long. They need to be probably another 1/4 inch shorter. I've got 3 washers underneath the head just to keep the bolt from hitting the gearbox. Them damn bolts were, $10.50, about $10.50 a piece, so there's $65 in bolts for 10 bolts. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but that was enough. I mean, that took me, like I said, good 2 days to do that, and then get it on there and fit it and tweak it a little bit, get it so it slips on good and the bolts pass through it. Tail wheel was real easy finish once I got the parts for that. So I don't think I really need to order anything else now. I've pretty much got everything I need. Just get the wings on here and hooked up. I'll need to put the pitot tube on the left wing and do a test with the airspeed, make sure it's working fine. Again, I need to go through and double check all these connections, make sure they're all cotter pinned, which I believe they are, because those are adjusted. Then what I'll do on the wing, I can't really get to it. I don't have any way to indicate how many degrees the flaps are down. So that last flap on that outboard wing, that flap right there, when it goes down, it'll expose the edge of the aileron right here. It'll expose this seam. And what I'll do is I'll paint lines on the edges of that. Let me give you an idea here of what I'm talking about. Say this is the aileron. When the flaps come down, it's going to expose the aileron. And then what you do is you paint a line, a white line there for 10 degrees, and 20 degrees, and 30 degrees. And then when I'm sitting in the cockpit, looking out at the wing this way, on that last flaps here, I'll be able to see it out here from the cockpit, and I'll know, and just do one side or both sides. And then any other thing I need to do is to get in and out of this thing, wherever the truss is, for the wing landing gear, somewhere right about here, I need to put a big patch of anti-skid material right here so I can step on this, because you can't step on these, you know, those are the flaps. But you're going to have to literally step up here on the wing, and this is kind of slippery with anything on it. So I'll put a patch on each side depending on which way I feel more comfortable getting in and out of. So that little thing there, I'll find some of that material, get some good industrial piece on there. Doesn't have to be very big, just enough to get your foot on so you don't slip. I have all the hardware to finish the ailerons. I'm pretty sure I already had them pre-sized and for up travel, down travel. So I guess that's going to be it for this week's update, folks. Short and sweet. But I mean, I worked on it this week. Was it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? It was damn near 90 here, and the humidity was off the chart. I'm pretty sure the whole East Coast was that way. But it was, heat index was like 96 to 98 degrees in the sun. In the shade, it was still hotter in the shade than the air temperature. So, and with the humidity up here, you know, it gets pretty bad by the lake. So, those 2 days I was doing Uber and that, so I didn't work on this. But Monday and Tuesday was the hub. A little bit of Wednesday, tinkering around with this tail. The bolts and stuff came Friday. So, pretty much yesterday, I did all the work yesterday and today getting this elevator. I actually took that elevator completely off to work on the stuff and put it back together. So, that's where I'm at. I still need to figure out, well, I guess it's going to depend on the FAA, where the N number is going to go. It'd be nice if I could put the N number down under here, where it's really not, see, I don't really want to put it up here on the tail. It'll just throw off from the original look. The gear doors, I could put on gear doors, but they fold down and it'd be a little low. I'm going to see if I can't get away with putting it under there. Go with either, it'd probably have to be white numbers if it's on the blue. If I can get it on the white, and then it'll be black. But the number is the same as this aircraft is modeled after 18086. And when it's a 086, they drop the 0 and just call it 86. Now, like one of the other planes that Boeing and flew was 883, so it would have been 883, and it was 17883. But that number wasn't available, 883 wasn't available, but 18086 was available, and that's the actual serial number, BUNO number of the real one. So that this is modeled after. So that's pretty neat. I've already got that reserved. I've had it reserved for the last 3 years. I just reserved it last month for another year. So, but it's not going to take another year. Like I said, maybe. And this is June, middle of June. Yeah, probably by next month I should have everything squared away, buttoned down, and get the FAA up here. There's an office in Pittsburgh, and it's not 2 hours from here. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut this thing. Get this put on the computer, get it uploaded tonight so you guys have something to watch, and then stay tuned for the next update. It's either going to be gear doors or canopy forming. If I go to form the canopy, I may just set the camera up on a tripod, show me doing it again. I'm not going to go through the whole process with you, just show you what I'm doing to physically form it. So, but it's starting to look like an airplane again. Once I get the wings on, I've never seen this plane with the wings on it and the flaps all down and everything finished, engine, cowl, all that. Never seen it, so it'll be new to me just as it is to you folks. Alright, everyone, appreciate taking the time to watch my videos as always. Feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns, and I will answer them as they feel fit. So until next week, folks, this will be Don or Don out.